Charles Ponzi, a name that doesn't just whisper scandal, it screams it. Today, it's shorthand for financial fraud, a label slapped on schemes that promise the moon but deliver disaster. But before the world knew the term Ponzi scheme, there was just one man, bold, clueless, charming, and wildly dangerous. This is the unbelievable story of how a broke immigrant, with no real skills or plan, scammed thousands, lived like a king, and fell just as fast as he rose. He was born in Lugo, Italy, in 1882, into a family that had once bathed in luxury. His ancestors were wealthy merchants, proud, refined, and respected. But by the time Charles entered the world, that wealth had long since evaporated. His father, a humble postman, did what he could to keep the family afloat. But young Charles, he wasn't interested in stability. He was haunted by what his family had lost. And in his mind, it wasn't just a fortune that had slipped away, it was his birthright. Charles grew up obsessed with status. He watched wealthy families parade around with tailored clothes and golden cufflinks, while he scrubbed his own shoes clean of mud. That hunger, to be somebody, only grew stronger as he got older. When his father died, Charles was left with a small inheritance, just enough to get him started. And what did he do with it? Blew it. Not on investments, not on education, but on gambling, fine wine, and flashy clothes. He spent it like a man who believed his fortune was just one lucky breakaway. When the money ran out, he didn't downsize. He got desperate. And when desperation kicks in, there's only one thing left to do: take a bigger gamble. So, at the age of 21, Charles packed a single suitcase and boarded a ship bound for America. It was 1903. He arrived in Boston with $2 in his pocket and dreams bigger than the skyscrapers he hadn't yet seen. America was supposed to be the land of opportunity, but opportunity didn't greet him at the dock. Instead, he was met with struggle, endless, bone-deep struggle. He picked up odd jobs: waiter, busboy, sign painter. But he was lazy, impatient, and allergic to hard work. He got fired just as often as he got hired. Charles didn't want to climb the ladder. He wanted to skip to the top. He tried living within his means, but couldn't stomach the boredom. Every time he made a little money, he spent it all chasing pleasure: nightclubs, poker tables, champagne dreams on a soda budget. It was a losing game, and Charles knew it. So he did what any gambler does when the deck isn't stacked in his favor. He changed the table. But what happened next, no one saw coming. He headed north to Montreal, Canada, hoping to turn things around. There, he landed a job at Banco Zarossi, a bank catering to Italian immigrants. On the surface, it looked like his lucky break. He dressed in fine suits, worked in an office with marble floors, and started calling himself senior assistant. But beneath the surface, the bank was a ticking time bomb. It was paying investors with other investors' money, a scheme that looked strangely familiar in hindsight. When the bank collapsed, the owner fled with the funds, and Ponzi found himself holding the pieces. But instead of walking away clean, he made a choice that would define him. He forged a check for $423.58. He was caught, arrested, and sentenced to 3 years in prison. How long could he keep this illusion of success alive before it all came crashing down? 3 years later, out of jail and undeterred, he returned to America, this time with a little more desperation and a little less shame. But Ponzi didn't go straight. He was soon caught smuggling Italian immigrants into the U.S. and landed back in prison, this time for 2 more years. By now, honesty was a forgotten concept. He had one goal: live big, whatever it takes. And so, once again, he began his climb up the ladder, thinking maybe the third time would be the charm. But even then, his old mistakes hung over him like a dark cloud. When he was finally released, he tried to do things differently. He got married to a kind woman named Rose who believed in him. He tried a few odd jobs, even worked at an import-export company. But the jobs paid too little, and his taste for luxury was too expensive. So he quit again, always chasing something bigger, something better. He thought he could escape it, escape the constant gnawing hunger for more. But what if the more he sought was the thing that would destroy him? Could he keep running? He tried launching his own business. Failed. Tried helping his father-in-law run a fruit stand. Failed again. He even launched a magazine called The Trader's Guide, hoping it would reach 100,000 companies. But no one bid. No one advertised. No one cared. He was back at square one, until one envelope changed everything. A letter arrived from Spain. A simple request for his magazine. But what caught Ponzi's attention wasn't the letter. It was the international repli coupon enclosed inside. It was meant to let someone in one country pay for return postage from another. Most people wouldn't have given it a second look. But Ponzi, he saw gold. And the wheels began to turn. He discovered that IRCs could technically be bought in countries with weak currencies and redeemed in countries with stronger ones. The price difference? A few cents at best. But Ponzi's imagination didn't deal in cents. It dealt in millions. It was too good to be true. Or was it? He created a story. He was buying IRCs in bulk overseas, converting them into US stamps, and reselling them for huge profits. He promised investors a 50% return in 45 days, or if they were patient, 100% in 90. He claimed it was legal, risk-free, and backed by postal regulations. It wasn't. But it was convincing. And that was all he needed. And people believed him. At first, it was a trickle of cash. Then a stream. Then a flood. Boston residents lined up outside his office, desperate to invest. He took their money with a smile, paid off earlier investors using the new one's cash, and watched as the legend of Charles Ponzi grew. He bought a mansion, rolled through town in a chauffeur-driven limousine, wore silk suits and diamond rings. He tipped in $100 bills and talked like a Wall Street wizard. He was on top of the world. But beneath the surface, his empire was built on sand. Could he keep it going? As more money poured in, so did questions. Clarence Barron, a financial journalist, started asking, if Ponzi was really making millions off IRCs, why wasn't the postal system in chaos? Why weren't the IRC markets running dry? Simple answer, because Ponzi wasn't using them. The entire thing was a fantasy. There weren't enough IRCs in the world to justify the profits Ponzi was paying out. The whole operation was a house of cards, and it was beginning to shake. The authorities stepped in. Audits were launched, and the numbers told the real story. Ponzi owed more than $7 million, but had just a fraction of that in real assets. The dream shattered. In August 1920, Charles Ponzi was arrested. He was charged with 86 counts of mail fraud and sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. The curtain was falling, and Ponzi had no idea how to stop the collapse. How far had he gone? And how far was he willing to fall? But even then, he wasn't done. After serving part of his sentence, Ponzi headed south to Florida. New city, new name, same old lies. This time, he sold bogus land deals, promising massive returns. But people had learned. The legend was wearing thin. He was arrested again. He tried to flee, but was caught in New Orleans. The game was up. After serving another sentence, Ponzi was deported back to Italy. No more fans. No more headlines. Just silence. He eventually moved to Brazil, where he lived in a tiny apartment in Rio de Janeiro, blind in one eye, partially paralyzed, and flat broke. The man who once lived like royalty now relied on charity to eat. He died in 1949, with just $75 to his name and a legacy soaked in shame. The rise and fall of a king, gone in a flash. But his name, that lived on. Ponzi scheme became a global term, etched into law textbooks, criminal case studies, and financial warnings. His scam was basic, brutal, and brilliant in its simplicity. And even a century later, it's still happening. Different names, different faces, same greed, same lie. Ponzi's ghost still lingers, and the question remains, can we avoid falling for the next big con? So what do you think? Are we wiser today, or just better at hiding the scam? Could another Ponzi walk among us right now? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If this story shook you, hit that like button, subscribe for more unbelievable true stories, and buckle up, because this is just one of many wild rides we're about to take.